Matsuiski is with us tonight, said, call it political science fiction. Like you have science fiction utopias, and then you have dystopias like 1984 and Brave New World. So I read this book, easiest book I've ever read. Not only because I didn't have to use bookmarks. It poured out of my antiquated standard typewriter. Do you know most people today don't even know what I'm talking about? I use carbon today. What? Where's carbon today? But when the electricity goes out, I'm still back. This is a story about the older, super-rich, enlightened Americans in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. We got to get our licks in. One more time. Warren Buffett is watching the post-Katrina. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. He's in his living room in Omaha. He's watching this incredible, desperate stream of people and their children and families. No food, medicine, no shelter, on the roadside, nobody helping. Never mind the bobbing bodies in the waters and the ninth ward. And he can't take it anymore. This is fiction. He can't take it anymore. And I want to make sure there's some things he's just done. It's not fiction. Anyway, he can't take it anymore. He hires all these trucks with supplies and public health workers, takes them down to north of New Orleans. It's passing out on the side of the highway tents, medicine, water, food, and the people are really desperate, terrified. And the word comes up the highway that some billionaire from the Midwest is getting it done in terms of emergency help. And he comes to an extended family, and he's helping these people, their kids are hungry, crying. And the grandmother grabs his hand, looks at him in the eye, and says, only the super rich can say that. Which is why this is in quotes. The next scene is a hotel in Maui, on the mountaintop in Maui, Hawaii, where he rents the whole hotel. No guests, just 16 other billionaires and mega millionaires, including Bill Cosby, Barry Diller, media mogul, Phil Donahue, William Gates Sr., Joe DeMeo, trial lawyer, Peter Lewis, the head of Progressive Insurance, Yoko Ono, Max Biletsky, started one of the first computer technology companies in California, Gino Paolucci of Minnesota, the Iron Man, 91 years old, full of spitfire, just started another company. Ross Perot, the founder of the big box discount store model, Saul Price gloves, sold to Costco. Bernie Rappaport, very progressive Democrat, insurance entrepreneur in Texas. Leonard Riggio happens to be a major factor in Barnes & Noble. George Soros, Ted Turner, and Paul Newman, unfortunately passed away recently. Those are the 16 plus him, and they sit around and they plan a very realistic strategy, even though it's fiction, to mobilize, motivate, empower the grassroots communities and the Congress districts to take on the corporate dominators, to take on the corporate supremacists, to take on the corporate Goliaths and their political allies in Washington. This is not philanthropy. It is not charity. It is a power collision. And it teaches us how to take apart power. Now, isn't it about time that we started thinking that there are a few older billionaires who have moved from success to trying to have a mark on their country and world, and be thought that way by their descendants? In real life, a month ago, Warren Buffett went to the Senate in Washington and told the senators that they had to raise taxes on the very rich like him because the very rich were undertaxed. said, let me give you an example. Last year, Warren Buffett paid 16% federal income tax. My secretary paid 25%. Is that fair? And the report on the meeting had a number of senators bemused by the spectacle of the second richest person in the world asking to be tax higher. And the rest were so startled that they backed away from him as if he had drug-resistant tuberculosis. That's why we have to take this to a different level, a different higher level, a different intensity level. And if we don't, we will wallow in our own dystopia. And between being accused of being a utopian or a dystopian, I don't have to tell you which one I prefer. Thank you.
So those of us who are working at the community level and with their meager bucks have found that what there are foundations which are funded by the super rich, and one has to be a nonprofit organization and do all kinds of paperwork to put together a nonprofit. So all of our time is taken up instead of organizing, putting together a nonprofit organization. So to get a direct contribution from somebody who's rich, do you suggest we go through the phone book? My experience is that rich people don't generally talk to people the likes of us.
That's true. You're 98% accurate, but the 2% can make all the difference.
Your book is fiction, but this is a real problem we have in Minnesota. How do we take your approach that you put in your book and apply it to Minnesota for getting universal health care? We have Alita Messenger, who was a Rockefeller, Messenger helped contribute money so that we were able to get the Wildlife and Heritage Amendment passed here in Minnesota in the last election. And it's my understanding that more people voted for that in Minnesota than they voted for Obama. And she gave the startup money, and it wasn't $1 million, $2 million. And we're trying to get, single-payer universal health care coverage, everybody in, nobody out here in Minnesota, and we have no funds to get. We have wonderful people working with MUHCC and working with UCAN, and we just cannot get the funds to get the message out. So how do we really take your approach in your book and make it happen here in Minnesota? How do we get someone like Alita?
You mean at the state level?
Yeah.
Single payer at the state level?
How do we get them to give the money so that we can get the people involved?
You develop a committee of citizens with varying backgrounds, doctors, nurses, organizers, so on. And you plan a strategy. You lay out the profiles of the richest people in Minnesota. You get their background. Some of you may know their children. They've gone to school with their children. And you rigorously go through one meeting after another. But you have to have a plan that is credible to them. I think if 6 billionaires gave $1 billion nationwide to get it through Congress, with the smart strategy, the good message, and the organizers, next year you could get it. A third of Congress already privately would vote for single payer. Literally, a third. In fact, 83 have signed on openly H.R. 670.
I know he's got good stuff, really good stuff. We all owe a lot to Nader, but my question is, is beneficence freedom? Could that ultimately lead to freedom? But I don't know if it could. Maybe I got to read the book, I guess, to find out. But
have you ever voted for him?
I have, yeah, in 2000.
How did you feel about that at the time? You felt like you had no home in either the Democratic or Republican Party.
Oh, absolutely. No, everything he says about the two-headed duopoly is absolutely correct. It's been proven time and again. I voted for Obama last time around. I'm still going to give him a chance, but I think Obama's maybe a little too... I'm not going to say what he is, but I'm scared that he's scared of sacrifice. He's potentially more interested in a legacy than he is in giving the ultimate, which I think if he really puts the elite's feet to the fire, he could probably get assassinated, and I think he might be scared of that.
Do you feel a little cynical about tonight's message, though, which was about basically the money had the power? And if you don't have a lot of money, then you don't have a lot of power.
Yeah, it seems
what
like...
are you and me supposed to do?
Exactly.